and breaches.
Where the digital hits the physical, we take the red pill, we break the seal. Infallible security, making it real. Bharat Mattaparti on the mic tonight, turning the darkness into light.
Bytes, borders, bridges.
Time. We think of time as a constant, a universal measurement, a sequence of seconds ticking away on a clock, indifferent to human suffering. We measure our quarters, our sprints, and our fiscal years by it. But in the domain of cyber warfare, time is not a measurement. It is a weapon. They know our calendar better than we do. They know when our security operation centers run on skeleton crews. They know when our executives are skiing in Aspen. They know when we lower our shields to roast chestnuts and open presents. And most importantly, they know exactly when the temperature drops low enough that turning off the power isn't just an inconvenience, it is a death sentence. In episode 3, we warned you about CRINK, the alliance of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. We told you they were industrializing destruction. We told you the war was moving from the screen to the street. Well, this week, they didn't just move to the street, they moved to the thermostat. And they moved to the sky. While we were celebrating the holidays, Eastern Europe was fighting off a winter siege. Romanian energy grids, Ukrainian heating plants, hit with precision timing to maximize human suffering. This wasn't hacking for money. This was hacking for hypothermia. And while we were freezing on the ground, we looked up and realized the sky was full of spies. The FCC just banned foreign-made drones, finally admitting what we have known for years. We have covered our critical infrastructure with flying cameras that phone home to Beijing. But the rot goes deeper than the borders. It goes into code itself. Tonight, we are going to talk about God mode. We found a vulnerability in the very foundation of the modern web, React, that lets attackers rewrite the laws of physics inside your application. And we found a hole in the management plane of your servers that lets them own the metal itself. And finally, we are going to look at the bill. Jaguar Land Rover just posted their financials. A 43% drop in cars built. Billions gone. Not because of a recession, but because of a hack that happened months ago. And in South Korea, an e-commerce giant is trying to pay for a massive breach with its own funny money, proving that privacy is now just a commodity to be traded for coupons. The siege is invisible, folks, but the casualties are real. Welcome back to Bytes, Borders and Breaches. I am Bharat Mattaparti. I don't just read the headlines. I read the source code of the apocalypse so you don't have to. Tonight, we are conducting a forensic autopsy on the 3 signals that defined the start of 2026. First, securing the borders. We are going to expose the calendar kill chain. We aren't just looking at the attacks on Romania and Ukraine. We are analyzing why the enemy chose December 26th, Boxing Day, to strike. And we will look at the FCC's new ban on foreign drones. We will ask, is a ban enough? Or is it too late to remove the hardware Trojan from our skies? Second, decoding the bytes. We are entering God mode. We will break down React 2 Shell as CVS's 10.0 vulnerability that turns your fancy web apps into open doors for Chinese threat groups. And we will look at the HPE OneView hack. This isn't just an OS vulnerability. It is a flaw in the management plane that controls the physical metal of the server. We will show you why your endpoint detection tools are blind to this attack. And finally, dissecting the breach. The high cost of silence. From the $3 billion hangover at Jaguar Land Rover to the Voucher hush money scandal at Coupang, where 33 million identities were sold out by a rogue insider and the company's response was to issue store credit. We will show you why privacy has become the cheapest asset on the balance sheet. The system isn't just blinking red, folks. It is freezing over. Take the red pill. Let's see how cold it really is outside. Let's open our first file, Securing the Borders. I want you to think about Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, specifically the Battle of Hoth. The rebels are hiding on an ice planet. The environment is hostile. It is a world where the elements kill you faster than the enemy can. If the heating systems fail, everyone freezes to death in minutes. The Empire knows this. And how do they start the siege? They don't send the fleet immediately. They don't just bombard from the orbit. They send a Viper probe droid, a single hovering robot that scans the terrain, locks onto the thermal signature of the shield generator, and transmits the coordinates back to the fleet. This week, we saw the Battle of Hoth play out in Eastern Europe, and we realized that our own skies are full of probe droids. First, let's talk about the siege. We call it the calendar kill chain. On December 20th, just as officers were emptying out for the holidays, the Romanian National Water Authority, Apel Romain, was hit. 6 days later, Boxing Day, December 26th, the Gentleman ransomware group struck the Oltenia energy complex. Let's pause and look at the target selection. This wasn't a bank. This wasn't a casino. Oltenia provides 30% of Romania's power. Apel Romain controls the water supply for an entire nation. These are what we call life safety critical systems. Now, look at the timing. December 26th. Historically, military commanders have always used winter. Napoleon was defeated by the Russian winter. The German army froze outside Stalingrad. In cyber warfare, the winter general is the holiday schedule. But don't think this is just a lucky guess. This is OSINT, Open Source Intelligence, weaponization. The attackers are scraping your corporate LinkedIn pages. They are monitoring your happy holidays posts to see who is active and who is checked out. More terrifyingly, they are pinging your email servers to harvest out-of-office auto replies. every time your server automatically replies, I am out of the office until January 5th. For urgent matters, contact a junior employee. You are sending a tactical scouting report to the enemy. You just told them the decision maker is gone. The backup contact is less experienced. They have a 10-day window to operate without oversight. When they strike on Boxing Day, the mean time to respond doubles. The confusion triples. Communication chains are broken because the decision makers are on a ski slope in the Alps with spotty reception. They didn't just hack a server, they hacked the HR schedule. And look at the weapon they used. They used BitLocker. For those who don't know, BitLocker is a legitimate Windows security tool. It is designed to encrypt your hard drive so that if you lose your laptop, a thief can't read your data. The gentleman group didn't write a fancy new virus. They gained administrative access and then they turned on BitLocker. They used the system's own immune system to kill the host. They locked the energy company out of its own control servers using the very tools installed to protect them. This is the definition of living off the land. Why build a weapon when you can just pick the one sitting on the victim's desk? Then shift your eyes to Ukraine. January 8th. Russian strikes coordinated with cyber effects left over 1 million people without heat and water. Temperatures were plunging below zero. This is the kinetic effect we predicted in episode 2. The goal is not data theft. The goal is turn off the heat on planet Hoth and let the cold kill the opposition. This is siege warfare digitized. In the Middle Ages, you surrounded a castle and starved them out. In 2026, you surround the SCADA network and freeze them out. But how do they know where to strike? How do they map the infrastructure so perfectly? Enter the probe droids. On January 7th, the FCC finally dropped the hammer. They added specific foreign-made uncrewed aircraft systems, drones, to the covered list. Basically a ban. They declared them an unacceptable national security risk. Why now? Because for the last decade, we have been buying the Empire's probe droids to inspect our own eco base. We used these foreign drones to inspect our bridges. We use them to survey our power lines. We use them to map our water reservoirs. We use them to film our weddings. We bought them because they were cheap. We bought them because they had 4K cameras and great battery life. We thought we were buying a camera. We were actually installing a hardware Trojan in our own airspace. In Empire Strikes Back, the probe droid transmits the location of the shield generator before it self-destructs. These drones have been doing the exact same thing. Technically, here is what happens. The drone collects telemetry data, GPS coordinates, flight paths, video footage. It stores this data. Then when it connects to the internet for a firmware update or to sync your flight logs to the cloud, it sends a packet to a server in Shenzhen. That packet contains the high-resolution 3D map of the critical substation you just inspected. It contains the structural weak points of the dam you just surveyed. It contains the thermal exhaust ports of the power plant. This is the failure of data sovereignty. You can pass all the laws you want about where data is stored. You can write GDPR policies until your hand cramps. But if the device itself, the physical hardware collecting the data, is hard-coded at the factory to phone home, your laws are meaningless. You cannot patch a spy. The border isn't a line on a map anymore. The border is the firmware on the drone hovering over the Golden Gate Bridge. The border is a SCADA system controlling the heater in a Romanian apartment block. And right now, the shield generator is down. Let's move to the code. Decoding the bytes. If the physical world is under siege, the digital foundation is rotting. I want to talk about Inception. In the movie, the architect builds the dream. But if the architect leaves a flaw in the design, the dreamer or an intruder can manipulate the physics of the world. They can fold cities in half. They can turn gravity off. They can reshape the reality of the dream to suit their needs. We build the modern web on a framework called React. It is fast. It is modular. It is beautiful. It powers everything from your banking app to your social media feed. But we built it with a flaw in the physics. Meet React 2 Shell CVE 2025-55182. A perfect 10.0 on the CVSS scale. For the non-technical audience, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, goes from 0 to 10. A 10.0 isn't just a bad score. It is a fatality. It is the blue screen of death for your entire enterprise security posture. It affects Next.js and React server components. This isn't some old legacy software from 1995 like COBOL. This is the stuff we built the new internet with. The vulnerability is called unsafe deserialization. That's a fancy word for blind trust. Let me explain this mechanism because it is vital you understand how fragile the web really is. Why do we do this? Why do we use serialization? Because it's efficient. We want our apps to be fast. We want seamless data transfer between the client and the server. We traded security for milliseconds of load time. When you send data to an application, let's say you upload a user profile, that data has to be packaged up to travel across the internet. We call this serialization. It turns a complex object into a stream of bytes. When it reaches the server, the application has to unpack it. It has to turn those bytes back into an object it can use. This is deserialization. In a secure world, the application checks the data before it unpacks it. It asks, is this just text? Is this just a number? Is this safe? In a React to Shell world, the application doesn't ask, it trusts. If you hand it a serialized object that contains a command to open a reverse shell instead of a user profile, the application unpacks it and executes the command. It is like handing a bank teller a sealed envelope. The teller is programmed to open the envelope and immediately do whatever is written on the note inside. China Nexus groups, specifically Earth Lamia and Jackpot Panda, weaponize this within hours. They aren't waiting for you to patch. They are scanning the internet right now. They are installing crypto miners. They are harvesting cloud credentials. We built a glass house for our data and we just handed the enemy a sledgehammer. But wait, it gets worse. Because even if your software is secure, even if you patch React, even if your application layer is a fortress, your hardware is compromised. Let us talk about God mode. In video games, God mode means you can't die. You can walk through walls and you can reshape the level. In the data center, God mode is the management plane. CISA just warned us about HPE OneView, CVE 2025-37164, another 10.0. OneView is a software that manages the physical servers. It sits below the operating system. It tells the metal what to do. To understand this, we have to talk about rings of security. Ring 3 is your applications. Chrome, Word, React. Ring 0 is your operating system kernel. Windows, Linux. This is where we think the power lies. But there is a ring -1. This is the firmware, the hypervisor, the management plane. HPE OneView lives in ring -1. Think about your security stack. You have antivirus, you have EDR, endpoint detection and response, you have firewalls. Where do those tools live? They live in ring 0 or ring 3. They live in the operating system. If you hack the website, React, you own the app. If you hack the management plane, OneView, you own the physics of the data center. You can wipe the storage arrays. You can reimage the servers. You can turn off the cooling fans and melt the processors. And here is a nightmare scenario. Persistence. If I hack your Windows OS, you can just wipe the hard drive and reinstall Windows. The virus is gone. But if I hack the management plane, I am not on the hard drive. I am on the motherboard. I am in the silicon. You can wipe the hard drive. You can buy a new hard drive. You can reinstall Windows 1,000 times. But the moment you turn that machine back on, I am still there. I am the ghost in the machine's soul. And the scariest part? Your fancy EDR tools, they can't see this. They are looking out the window for burglars, while the monster is coming up through the floorboards. This is the Matrix analogy. Neo isn't fighting Agent Smith inside the simulation anymore. Neo has gone to the machine city. He is talking to the source. He is rewriting the code of the Matrix itself. When an attacker exploits HPE OneView, they are at the source. They can delete the logs that would prove they were ever there. They can turn off the defenses with a single command. When you have a 10.0 in the app layer, React, and a 10.0 in the metal layer, HPE, you don't have a security posture. You have a sandwich, and you are the meat. The attackers are eating us from the top down and the bottom up. Which brings us to the bill, dissecting the breach. We talk about risk in abstract terms. We talk about reputation damage. We talk about regulatory fines. Let's talk about solvency. Let's talk about Jaguar Land Rover. On January 5th, JLR released their Q3 financial results. It was a bloodbath. Wholesale volumes, the number of cars they actually sold to dealers, dropped by 43.3%. Almost half of their business gone. Why? Not because people stopped wanting Range Rovers. Not because of a recession. Not because of interest rates. But because of a cyber attack back in September that halted production at their key plants. This is the lagging indicator. In Moneyball, they talk about statistics that tell the truth. He gets on base. This is the truth of cyber war. It's not just about stolen files. It's about cars not built. We live in a just-in-time economy. We worshipped at the altar of lean manufacturing for 40 years. We removed the warehouses. We removed the buffer stock. We treated inventory as waste to be eliminated. Well, in a war, inventory isn't waste. Inventory is a bunker. When JLR systems went down, they didn't have a pile of parts to keep building cars. Just-in-time parts stopped arriving. The assembly line stopped moving. We built a supply chain that was optimized for profit, but fragile for disruption. If you hack the factory floor, you stop the revenue engine. Think about the ripple effect here. It is not just JLR losing money. It is the tire supplier who has thousands of tires sitting on a dock with nowhere to go. It is the glass manufacturer. It is the dealership in Ohio with an empty lot and salespeople who can't feed their families because they work on commission. This attack removed billions of dollars from the UK GDP. Cybersecurity is no longer an IT issue. It is a solvency issue. If you are a CEO listening to this, your CISO isn't protecting your email. He is protecting your stock price. He is protecting your ability to exist as a company. The market punished JLR months after the attack. The poison is slow acting. But sometimes the response to a breach is even more insulting than the breach itself. Let us talk about Coupang, the South Korean e-commerce giant, the Amazon of Korea. They suffered a massive data breach. 33.7 million users. Names, contact info, transaction history exposed. And how did it happen? Was it a sophisticated nation-state attack? Was it a 0-day in the kernel? No. It was a rogue employee. A developer who smashed his laptop and threw it in a river to hide the evidence. Insider threat. The oldest vulnerability in the book. High-tech defenses cannot stop low-tech rage. But that is not the red pill here. The red pill is the restitution. Coupang announced a plan to distribute $1.17 billion in compensation. Sounds generous, right? Here's the catch. They are paying it in vouchers. Store credit valid only at Coupang. They are paying for their failure with their own funny money. I want you to think about the episode of Black Mirror called 15 Million Merits. You are trapped in the system. You work for the system. And when the system fails you, they pay you in merits to keep you cycling on the bike. This is the company store model of cybersecurity. They lost your most private data, your identity, your shopping habits, your digital life. And their apology is to force you to shop more at the very store that betrayed you. The valuation works out to about $35 per person. That is the price of your digital identity in 2026. $35 in store credit. It is an insult disguised as an apology. This sets a terrifying precedent. If companies can fix a breach by printing their own currency, where is the deterrent? If a bank gets hacked, can they pay you back in ATM fee waivers? If a hospital leaks your records, can they pay you in free Tylenol? This is the commoditization of privacy. They have turned your data into a liability and your compensation into a marketing campaign. JLR shows us the cost of the stop. Coupang shows us cost of the soul. And in both cases, the price is too high. So, what do? We are being squeezed from the outside by the calendar kill chain, adversaries weaponizing the winter and the holidays, proving that our comfort is their weapon. From above, the hardware trojans in our drone fleets, proving that cheap hardware has a hidden geopolitical tax. From the inside, by the God mode, vulnerabilities in our own code and the insider threats, throwing laptops into rivers. The message of episode 4 is simple. The foundation is not safe. You cannot trust the calendar. Just because it's Christmas doesn't mean you are safe. It means you are a target. You cannot trust the code. Just because it's React doesn't mean it is secure. You cannot trust the apology. Just because they offer you a voucher doesn't mean they value your privacy. We need to stop assuming that default means safe. Default is dangerous. If you are a defender, assume the parasite is already in the basement. Go hunt for them. Don't wait for the alert. The alert is already too late. If you are a leader, look at JLR. Ask yourself, how many days can we survive without revenue? The winter is here. The digital cold is setting in. Put on a coat. Patch your servers. And for God's sake, don't take the voucher. I am Bharat Mattaparti. This is Bytes, Borders and Breaches. Stay paranoid.
This is Bytes, Borders, and Breaches!